A revolutionary. Say whoa. Trap revolutionary. Got the wave it too scary. Doing this thing like Malcolm ain't by any means necessary. We ain't got it by no one seen hand. We got the master plan. Get the movement going on. Right here where we stand, man. We bucking and stumping, fist pumping. Even though they tried to set us up for failure and kill us, we keep on coming. That's why somebody gotta step up and say something about the bullshit. Because if not, the blind gon' keep leaving.
What's going on, y'all? Y'all want to do a video real quick. Y'all just thinking about something. Just had on my mind about standing in America and fighting a good fight. You know, I know it's easy, man, it's easy for us, man, you know, some of our people, man, on the left or whatever, you know, to live a better life, man. Hey, I understand, you know, the stress of America dealing with the racism and everything in America, man. Sometimes it's just too much to bear, and you know, and it just leaving is just like a better option, you know, like pretty much, probably like a actual option, like a actual really good option, just to get away from now, right? So. You know, I understand that, but I was just thinking about, like, man, because, you know, I did a video about, you know, Carmelo Anthony's situation. There's so much surrounding that. And, man, I'm just thinking about it, like, man, sometimes I get upset about the racism. Sometimes I get upset about black people, you know, us dealing with the racism, because sometimes I feel like we're too... Can't say we just accept it or have allowed it, or we have just become numb to it. In a sense, in some of those ways we have, some of those aspects we have, right? But I just think about it, man. Like, you know, dealing with, you know, America and the culture of racism, you know. It's frustrating, you know, and I can understand, you know, why, like, some people leave. Like, hey, I'm gone. Matter of fact, what brings my Khalees, well, she had the popular song, you know, My Milkshake or whatever. I think she actually was married to Nas, but she moved to the motherland, moved to, was it Ghana or Kenya? But she moved, you know, out the country, just like, you know, actually started a farm, you know, like basically like living. Seems like she living peacefully over there, you know. So I understand, you know, I kind of understand that, like, man, just like, you know, just get away from it all. But, you know, I just thought about it, man. I'm gonna stay here and fight the good fight. Of course, though, you know, when I get, you know, my money and everything, right, I do want to have a second home in possibly like Jamaica, maybe Ghana, something like that. I don't know, Nigeria, you know, somewhere, Kenya, you know, somewhere in the motherland. I do want to have a home, you know, in those couple of places, you know, maybe even Thailand. You know, my homeboy, he be telling me about Thailand so much, so maybe in Thailand, but I know for a fact Jamaica is somewhere in the motherland, you know. And then I also have a home here, you know, so whenever I want to, you know, travel to the United States, I can travel here. But I just said to say, man, you know, I was like, I'll stay here and fight the good fight. You know, I don't, to me, it's not going to do any good to run from the situation and just leave it, because the problem is still going to exist. You know, we need it's a war of attrition. We need to continue to fight and chip away at this racist society, you know, because it is basically set up against us. Like I said in that, you know, video I just did, it's set up against, you know, black people. You know, the system is set up to hinder and, you know, really exploit black people, take advantage of black people in every form and fashion. That's from monetary, like how we spend our money, buying certain things, you know, how also not allowing us to buy certain things. You know how you have people that have been either jailed, killed, or you know, totally denied. Certain to make certain purchases, like Bill Cosby, locked up. Understand? Prince wanted his masters, straight killed. Michael Jackson owned the Beatles catalog, straight killed. End up being unalive. So it's certain things, certain instances where you have our people over here, and they have money. They end up being something happens to them. Even with Diddy, the situation with Diddy, even him doing what he did was wrong. Him putting his hands on Cassie, whatever, doing it in that sense. But as far as freaking and all that, that's not even an issue. What was the issue is this: he was considering being an independent and starting an independent party for black people to vote, and have some type of voting power. So one of those that when he did that, wanting to become a political, having some type of political power, he ended up being targeted, and also filed a lawsuit against one of the companies that own Ciroc. So that was a British company. But anyway, when it comes down to it, the control of how we spend our money, how we, even our bodies, like I said, you end up, the school to prison pipeline. That's one of the things. Just in the judicial system, it's two, like I said, two sets of rules. Two sets of applications of different applications of law when it comes to black and white people. Controlling our bodies, our black bodies. You know what I'm saying, for labor purposes. Droves of us in prison. In that way. That we're being controlled in that sense. You know what I'm saying? Anytime we get involved in the judicial system, it's pretty much a wrap. You're going to get some form of some time, some, nest control, like I said, over us, over our bodies, through the judicial system, to incarcerate us or give us some form of probation, some form of parole to control our basically our movements, control us to where, it's some form of institution control over us and what we can and cannot do, So in that sense, it's just so many forms, man, of that and how, we are governing in society, and something has to be done about it, So if it's even political control, you know what I mean? Because now they're chipping away at our rights. Like I said, in the Louisiana versus Cayas, they pretty much said Section 2 was just, pretty much they knocked that down. Section 2 of the 1965 Civil Rights Voting Rights Act. You know what I'm saying? So, which gave us certain amounts of power, and voting power within, our respective areas, that we live in, So, it's a war of attrition, just like it's a war of attrition against us. Like I said, those steady knocking down voting rights acts, trying to control us through the judicial system, basically controlling our bodies, controlling how we even spend our money. Then even the media aspect of it, controlling how we see ourselves. There's always some, if you want to put it, some on TV is being reported in the news. If you're reporting something, like it's crazy how TMZ reported on Carmelo Anthony, calling him the young teen convict. You know what I mean? Like calling him a convict, like he's a habitual criminal or something. They could have changed the words around, but they said a young teen convict when they was talking about him in regards to his fund that was suspended or that was basically taken down from Give, Send, Go. You know, he amassed, like I said, prior video, I was talking about it, he amassed like $630,000. So they stopped it. They actually come to find out they changed the rules saying now, oh, we don't allow people that have been convicted of a crime to have a platform or have a funding page on our platform. So anyway, steady like issues like that, man. Racism is so deep to where, and as a brother Willie said, he mentioned about, the goalposts. They're always moved. Anytime we start getting a leg up, they pulling the rug up from up on us, man. Some form of fashion. It's always something that is done to hinder us. You know what I mean? Just to start making progress. Rug pull. Same thing in which I mentioned about, Black Wall Street, Seneca Village, in New York. Deep Ellum here in Dallas, Oscarville in Georgia. Where's Rosewood in Florida? It's having progress, man. Anytime we have progress, it's a rug pull. So, even in that sense, it's so many aspects that, like I said, the system is set up to stymie us, to stymie our progress, or to, if we do get involved with the judicial system, it's an unfair treatment. It's two different treatments, what I'm saying? One for white, one for black. The laws apply for black people and white people differently. That's a fact. That's been like that since the, like I said, inception of judicial or rule of law, correctional institutions or prison systems, prison institutions. So, that's one of the things, man, that we got to fight against. It's a war of attrition, just like against us. It has to be a war of attrition against the system. We got a steady chip up at this system, man, that's seeking our demise, to hinder us, in whatever form possible, so it can control us. That's what's going on. The system is set up to hinder us so it can control us. Hinder us in, economically, mentally, physically, spiritually, just in so many ways. It's set up to control us. So we have to do a job of war of attrition. That's why I say I stay here and fight the good fight. I feel like that's something I cannot do is run from the problem. We know it's a problem. People that left, they like, hey, I got to go, and rightfully so, man. Rightfully so. It's like, man, I'm not gonna deal with it. I just rather leave. It's better for me, better for my mental health, better for my family to just go, and my spirit can be at peace. So I understand that. But, to those out there that have left, man, maybe reach back in some form of fashion, man, because we got to fight this beast. We got to challenge it. We got to do something about it, because all of our people can't go. All our people are not going to leave, but we have to do something about it so we won't be, as I said in the video before, slowly wrapped around, and coiled, round like a snake, coiled around our necks like a snake and choke us out. Because that's basically what it seems like has been happening. Certain things are being, either, I don't say, you want to say repealed, and a lot of things have been just totally like either changed, abridged, or just like stopped, just totally stopped. Like certain community programs, we were saying like DEI, like we're talking about the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 is pretty much being repealed. Man, did come find out too, my cousin even mentioned like 300,000. Man, I didn't realize how many federal workers had pretty much jobs have been just straight up deleted. Like they don't, and it was a lot, didn't know. District of Columbia, I guess, Virginia, or in the area near the White House, there are a lot of government jobs, a lot of government workers, working people there. And Trump pretty much like eliminated 300,000 jobs. They said a lot of them were black women. And in that area, I believe in the DC area, man, like a lot of foreclosures ended up taking place because people lost their jobs. Some people don't, some people are not, they didn't have anything besides their job, the income from their job. So it's like, dang, man, stuff like that. You're, hurting people. This is what's going on. Like purposely, like hurting people, man. Taking things and like hindering progress. It's like you hindering progress from the nation. You hinder us, you hinder progress from the nation. Cause just think, I said this before too, man. If you harm or you deny the rights or pretty much hinder a part of your population, and deny them the benefits of the overall society, that doesn't make your whole society thrive. That cripples part of your society. It hinders part of your society where the whole of the society it's not well because a part of your, the population of your society is hurting. You know what I'm saying? And it's silly. It's really lame. Like it's really lame that you're wanting to harm or hinder black people simply because of we're black, man. That is crazy. Like makes no sense when we could actually, man, make the whole nation better. The whole nation could be better if you had black people included in the prosperity of the nation. That's what's happening. We're not included in the prosperity of the nation simply because we black. We've been hated and despised simply because we're black. But it's because of the divinity within us, man. And people hate that. They hate that. They hate that we're that spark. We got that spark in us. It's always to create, to build, to do better, to exceed. To go above and beyond. That's who we are. That's what we do. We build things out of nothing, like seriously. And that's what's hated because we have that spark in us, man. And we understand people hate that. People that don't look like us, they hate that. Caucasian people, mainly European people, hate that. They despise that about us. It's something that they just in them. This is our God-like nature. And they have, it's a bit of warped nature that they actually have that hates that about us. You know what I'm saying? So, it's ridiculous. And I would say because of that, and because I know that, hey, I'm gonna stay here and fight the good fight. I'm not going nowhere. I know some people, hey, they may be upset, like, man, you tripping. I'm gone. I ain't got time. Cool, man. That's you. I understand you have to live your life. But God blessed me to have my spirit, what's in my spirit. And I just know that's what I know I got to do. I wouldn't be comfortable leaving here and running away and like, oh, when I know my people are here suffering. I feel like I gotta do something, even if it's just making a video. If I can't get out on the streets and do something about it, or, whatever it may be, physically or, whatever it may be, protesting, whatever, getting out on the street, I'm protesting right here when you see me doing these videos, because I'm trying to help wake people up and like, hey, man, something got to change and let's try to do something about it. But yeah, I just want to make this video and say that, man, because like, yeah, I'd rather stay here and fight the good fight than leaving, man. You know what I'm saying? When the problem is still gonna persist. So somebody got to stay and do something about it. Just happened to be me. That's how they say, we kind of make a joke about it. Like, shoot, man, somebody got to do it. Just happened to be me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna do it with a smile. May see me frown sometime, but I'm gonna do it with a smile in my heart. Just know that I know that God's with me. And I pray that God just be with our people. We continue, like I said, we got to continue to push forward, man. You know what I'm saying? Because, getting choked out slowly but surely, we can't let that happen. So yeah, let's do some work, man. Put in some work, and change this system over here. But anyway, let me get up out of here. I just want to get on here and say that. You know, I hope everybody out there doing well, living life full of love and happiness. Hope y'all out there, you know, doing a great living life, strive for greatness every day. And I appreciate y'all, you know, like and sharing my videos, you know, and you know, until the next one, y'all. Love y'all. All right, y'all. Appreciate it.
Bucket, go ahead and blow off the dough. Step through the maze, man, and became amazing. About to rewrite history and change the page in a crooked book that never told us the true story. Like how we were kings and queens before the slave story, before the killing, stealing, and drug dealing on some real shit. We ran the world.